So there we go. I've gotten rid of everything to do with those curves, right? And now I can go back in and just change those two layers real quick. The D nodes, I can unlock it, and the D elevation, I can unlock it, and they come back on nice and bright. So now I've got that cul-de-sac gone. I have to lay out my property lines, right? I've got to figure out where my property lines are going to be. Now, we got to go back to our right-of-way slide and see. The property line is 5.7 from the edge of the road, or 10 meters from the middle of the road. So let's go back to our CAD file. I've already got the middle of the road, because I don't want to take the curb and offset it up, because it's now part of that, radius. So I'm going to take the center, I'm going to offset 10 meters. So I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go up. And now that's my property lines.
What was the offset?
10 meters from the center. So those are property lines. So what I want to do is I want to find a similar line type so I know what it is that I'm dealing with. So I'm going to go into my match properties. I've got a property line right here. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go change those to property lines. So I know what I'm dealing with. Now, the other thing is, I'm going to use my fillet command with a radius of 0. So I'm going to go change my radius to 0. And I'm going to connect this property line to this property line. So I'm going to fillet there. And I'm going to go over here, and I can't fillet this because it's going to erase this one down here. So this is where I have to use that break command, so BR. And I just need to put a little break in it so that it becomes two lines rather than one big line. Fillet, radius of 0, boom, boom. Fillet down here, radius of 0. There we go. And over here, fillet, fillet. So now I've got my boundaries all the way around. I'm going to make them all the same color so I know what I'm dealing with. So I'm going to go in here, paintbrush, paintbrush. And I'm going to make all my property lines red so I know that they're my property lines. So now I've got all my red property lines for this area and this area. So at this point, I can start actually subdividing my land, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go turn off these two layers. Okay? I'm going to turn them off so that they're not in my way while I lay out my property, because I'm going to be dealing with a lot of nodes, because I'm going to be using the divide command like we did with the donuts for the traffic control. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to turn off those two layers. So right here, there's a little off button. So if I select those two things, and I hit this little off button, I'm able to go in and shut those off. But I already know what they're called. They're called D nodes and DL, right? D elevation. So now you can see that it cleaned up everything so I can lay out my property a little cleaner. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go from here, from the midpoint, and I want to go to the midpoint of this line over here. So now I've got a line that I can actually divide. So I can figure out how many properties I have up there. If we go back to the assessment, it says here each property must be must not be less than 12.5 meters. Wider is acceptable. So it depends how generous you want to be. Do you want to give these guys mega lots? How much money do you want to make, right? The more properties you have, the more money you're going to make. So now I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go and draw myself a little line at the center of this, just so I can get an idea. And I'm going to go offset 12.5, just to see what's going on. Like, how many properties can I get from the middle of that? Okay, so this guy's lot's gonna be really tiny. And same with over here, we've got useless space. But if I do a quick distance measurement, I'm 4. And I'm 4, so I've only got 8 meters left over, right? So even if I shift this over the 4 meters, I still don't have, you know, the right amount of property there. So if I look, right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 full lots, right, at 12.5, but I've got 4 meters here and I've got 4 meters here. So now this is making my decision fairly easy. I'm basically gonna go and divide this by 12, and that 4 meters on each end will get added to everybody's lot equally. So now I'm gonna erase this, I'm gonna go divide, div, and now I know I can put 12 lots in there. And you can see here that now my distance between my lots, instead of being 12.5, it's 13.17. So everybody got a little bit more of the pie, right? But I'm still within the 12.5, like I'm greater than 12.5, right? And I'm less than 15 meters from our slideshow, which still means that I'm high density, so I still have to have 100 meters between the fire hydrants. So now that I've done that, I'm gonna go ahead and draw a line up. I'm gonna copy that from node to node to node, because these are gonna become my property lines. Now I can erase those nodes. I can erase that line. And these are my subdivided property lines now. I'm gonna change the color so I know what I'm dealing with. And I'm gonna use that extend command. And I'm gonna pick my boundary edges. So I'm gonna pick down here, and I'm gonna pick up there. And now I can just draw a pencil line across them all, and it'll extend to where I need it to extend to. So now I've got my property divided up here, and everybody's happy because they got more than 12.5 meters, and they're less than 15, so everybody's, you know, I fall well within the parameters. Now I want to do the same thing down here, but down here I've got a little bit more property to deal with. So I'm going to go down there. I'm going to try, my very first attempt, I'm going to try to squeeze one extra lot. You know, instead of 12 lots down there, I'm going to try to squeeze 13 lots in. So I'm going to go here, midpoint, over here to the midpoint or the perpendicular point. And I'm going to go divide. I'm going to try to squeeze 13 lots down here and see what my distance is. So I'm going to go 13. And as long as I'm greater than 12.5, I'm within the parameters. So I'm going to go node to node, 12.59. So I just made myself an extra, you know, $200,000 by dividing, squeezing one more lot in there, but not falling below city Windsor standards. Now, would I want to live on this side? Probably, get a little bit more property. But I'm able to, you know, squeeze some extra money, and we're trying to do this. Nobody does anything for, like, I don't go to work every day, guys, because I love precast. It's just like my passion. I go to work to make money, right? It's the whole idea. We go to work every day to make money, to create a better life for ourselves. So if I can squeeze another 200 grand in my pocket by adjusting property lines because I own this subdivision, I'm gonna do it, right? Because I honestly, I care, but I don't care that the homeowner has this much less property if I've got 200 grand in my pocket. so that's why I'm squeezing 13 lots at the bottom, because I'm following all of the rules, but I'm gaining, you know, the city likes it because they're gaining property taxes on another resident. You know, I'm gaining a couple $100 grand for selling that block, you know, so it makes sense. So now down here, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and draw myself a line. And I'm gonna go match the properties to that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and copy this line to all my nodes. Now, you'll see here that this guy's on a pie-shaped piece of property. And his front lot is probably gonna be maybe a little less than 12.5, but once you get past the easement, he's at 12.5. So his physical property is gonna be just fine. Now I'm gonna go in here, erase my nodes, erase my reference line, and I'm gonna do the extend command again. And I'm gonna go pick my boundary edges, boundary, boundary, and I'm gonna just start over here, left click and drag, and it draws like a little pencil line. There, and same thing up here, left click and drag, and it draws a little pencil line. And you can see that now my property down below is subdivided, and we are down here, 12.59, and up here, 13.17. So people up above got a little bit, like maybe 2 feet more property than the people on the lot below, but by doing that, I gave myself a whole extra lot, right? So there we go. That's all done. Now I can go back in here, go to elevations, turn them back on, nodes, turn them back on, and there's my subdivision all divided out with all the elevations in there still and everything. The only other task that we have for today is I want to take the lot number and I want to number all of these lots, okay? I don't want to number them with the same numbers as what you see here. I want like down here you've got the 200s, up here you've got 100s. So probably a good idea to label these guys as the 300 series, because we don't know what's happening at the other end of St. Clair College Avenue because there are no lot numbers over there, right? You've got 168, 167, 167, or 166, 167. But I'm going to go ahead and label all of these the 300 series. You can see here that there's an alley over here, and there's an alley over here, and that's, see how you got the hydro running down here with utility poles? Right now, there's an alley. In the future, that might be sold. A good example of that is one of my employees, he had 20 feet beyond his fence in his backyard. He was cutting the grass, making it nice and clean because the tree line was 20 feet beyond his fence. So the city came along, he's lived there for a couple of years. The city came along and they sent him a notice and said, hey, would you like to buy up to the tree line? It was, I think, $1,800. So his property now gained 20 feet because they eliminated the alley. They said, we're not gonna do, it's not a useful alley. So they started selling it to the homeowners. So if you go to my house and look, if you go in my backyard and look down the fence line, people's backyards go like this. Because this guy could afford it, this guy couldn't, right? Or the guy was like, oh, I'm not worried, I don't want the extra, 10 feet. Because our alley was about 20 feet. So the guy on my street bought it, and the guy on the other street didn't buy it. So now his backyard is like this. And then you go a couple properties down, and it goes the other way, because this guy didn't buy it, and this guy did buy it. So like the property lines are all jagged down these alleys. But what they do is you buy these alleys off the city after they're no longer useful. Otherwise it becomes just a rat. Like rats are gonna run up and down there, you might as well make it usable property. But a lot of people don't wanna take the expense to take their fence out, move their fence. So you try to talk to the guy behind you, hey, are you gonna buy half, I buy half, or am I buying it all, or are you buying it all? You can kind of have those conversations. Luckily it was done before I lived there. Otherwise I would have been buying property behind other people's houses. Have a nice T-shaped yard. But the idea is these alleys in these cities, they end up getting closed out eventually, because a lot of people don't use the alleys. The alleys used to be useful years ago because there was no street parking. You would end up going down the alley and trying to park in your backyard, right? There's still a lot of that stuff down in Walkerville, a lot of the alleys down there. The garbage trucks even go down the alleys. They don't even put garbage out on the road because there's so much street parking. The garbage man would have to go in between every vehicle to get the garbage cans off the curb. So they force them to go into the alley. So, for today, we're down to about half an hour left. I'd like to get to the point where you've got your sidewalks in, your curbs, and you've got your property subdivided. That way there, next week, we can get into all the utilities and creating the dimension styles, so you can dimension all this stuff up. And then the following week is gonna be putting it in the title block and getting it ready to go for submission, okay? So I'm just gonna quickly go ahead and label my lots real quick, hit save, and then I'll come help anybody. Yeah. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, I think so. It's good?
He said he's doing these.